Aidan Mclindon, the Queensland leader of Bob Katter's Australian Party. Thanks for joining us today. Since the last election, you've been with the LNP, you were then an independent, and you formed the Queensland Party. Now you're with the Australian Party. Is this definitely your last political incarnation?
Oh, look, you can never say never, because the reality is when you look at people like Winston Churchill, even Menzies himself, these people have often found themselves trying to, without compromising their beliefs or ideologies, find where the political home best suits them. And I think the Australian Party certainly is everything that I stand for and what I believe in. And as I say to people, I've not compromised my beliefs or my philosophy or ideology. I've merely stuck to my guns, believing what I believe in. And it's as simple as that, because once you start negotiating and compromising your core beliefs, then it's a downward spiral. So I would say that this is certainly my political home. Should the party change its beliefs, which I don't think it will, then I too won't change my beliefs with it. There is a core set of values and principles in the party that the Australian Party encapsulates, and I look forward to carrying out every single one of those as a representative in the Parliament.
So are you ever questioned by constituents in the street? Are you stopped and do they ask, I don't know what you are anymore, I'm not going to vote for you?
No, not at all, because they know exactly what I'm about. I'm a no-nonsense sort of person when it comes to representing people in the Parliament. As they know, I will put up a good fight for every single one of them, regardless of whether they believe in my positions on different issues or not. But they know too well that I will go into battle for them and fight every inch of the way without compromising who I am and what it is I believe in. So I think in politics, that's few and far between. I'd rather do that and go down guns blazing than be somebody who becomes an automatic robot, what we're seeing in so many sides of both sides of politics, where people have largely become puppets, and that's not representative democracy. And once you disconnect yourself with the people and compromise your own beliefs, then what's the point of being in the Parliament?
The LNP appears very confident of winning your seat of Bow Desert. Have you done any polling of your own?
The only polling I do is to work my damnedest from sun up to sundown. So, look, I don't have time or the money or resources to do polling. I'm not going to be looking over my shoulder. I'll be forging forth, putting my best foot forward. The outcome, whether or not I win Bow Desert or not, is not on my radar. It's my objective is to do the best I can in the Parliament in the time that I've got, and the people have their say. So the least of my worries is what's going to happen on election night, because as long as I've been true to myself and the area of Bow Desert, to me that's all that matters. The other parties can run around doing their polling and making sure they're are they saying the right message, or looking at their focus groups. My focus group is doing what's right for people, and I think people wake up with the fact that there is no left and right anymore. There's a right and wrong. It's as simple as that.
I think it's fair to say coal seam gas is a big part of your party's policy. Can you tell us how you will differ from the major parties, in particular, I suppose, with the LNP, your former party?
Look, the LNP, of course, they've got a lot of other statements. What we've seen is that on no less than 3 occasions they've said that they support the expansion of the CSG industry. The Australian Party has called for a moratorium for 12 months. In that moratorium, we need to look at the science, the 22 dangerous chemicals that are used in the fracking process, which is banned in areas like New York, Paris, France, a lot of the Asian countries. They're banning it because of what it's doing to their environment, yet we're letting it steamroll here in Queensland. That moratorium is absolutely essential to make sure that we can identify the no-go zones, which would be the Scenic Rim region, the Great Artesian Basin. Most of the industry actually would be a no-go zone. That moratorium is absolutely essential, which we've seen the Senate committee also suggest that that's what should be happening. We're also empowering the landowners. We're giving them the right to say no. Right now they have a 28-day period to negotiate, and these foreign-owned mining companies can walk all over them. We've seen it time and time again now that people actually don't own their homes and their property. All we're saying is, where's our basic freedoms? This is what Australia's about. It's about a fair go, empowering the people to know that their land is theirs. Once they've got that opportunity to say no, covered with a moratorium and numerous no-go zones for CSG in Queensland, that's the strongest policy in concrete that the political parties in the Parliament are offering to the Queensland voters.
We've heard mention of the Coles and Woolworths dominance, how that you and Bob Katter want to stop it. How are you actually going to do that?
Well, you could actually legislate on a state level of government to ensure, when you have a competitive market, that they have a cap, like a lot of other countries do. I mean, a lot of foreign-owned businesses in other countries have a maximum of 49% ownership. What we're saying is, when you look at the marketplace, the free market has totally destroyed us into the future. We're going to say, we're going to empower the little guy, because what we're doing now in a two-speed economy, who's winning out of this so-called mining boom? The multinationals, that's what's happening. It's not the people of Queensland and Australia.
But what will you actually do? What specific policy can you implement to bring about the reduction of that duopoly?
We will legislate, and we're drafting up that policy, which we'll be releasing in election time. On a state level, there are a lot of constraints, obviously, in state, so there will be federal-based legislation that will be needed, but we will be saying that these competitive markets that are slowly eating each other out, and basically it's going to be reduced to insider trading when you've got two giants running the whole show, walking over little people. So obviously between state and federal legislation, where we can in the state, we'll make sure that complements some federal legislation which will cap the limit that they can have and the power that they can have in the marketplace. Bob
Katter is perceived as eccentric, perhaps by some as slightly unhinged. How is he as a boss?
Oh, he's a champion. He's an Aussie. He's an all-rounder. He's a legend. He's just like anybody. He doesn't get it right all the time, or he might, make a bit of a goose of himself, as we all do. But the best part about Bob is he's not your typical politician. He gets in there, he says it as it is, and I've actually formed a really good friendship with him. I've been on the road for 4 or 5 months now around Queensland, and there's a lot more than meets the eye when you see Bob. And as I keep saying to people, you've got to start listening with your ears and not your eyes, because he's got 40 years of experience under his belt. He knows what's best for the Australian people. His heart's in the right place. And I tell you now, he's extremely shrewd in how he operates politically, but both as a person as well. He's a very personable sort of person. People say, oh, he's a bit eccentric and that. Mate, that's Bob. You're not going to change him. He's been doing it for 40 years, so he must be doing something right. So I think if there was more Bobs in the parliament, in all levels of government, I think Australia would be a much better place.
Both major parties are on record as saying they won't negotiate you if you do happen to hold some sort of balance of power. How do you change their minds?
Well, that sounds like that's their problem. See, what we're seeing now, when both parties are willing to put up the brick wall, what that says to me is there is no difference between the two parties anymore. It's a personality contest. It shouldn't come as a surprise that the LNP don't want to talk about preferences or whether looking at a coalition government. That doesn't come as a surprise because they're so aligned socially and economically in their policies to the ALP that the leader of the party has said if we can't have it outright, we want to give it back to Labor. So they're so stuck in this two-party system and all they can see is the darkness. They don't want the light to enter. They don't want a third paradigm in the parliament. What we're saying is we have something different to offer. We are a point of difference. And the problems that they want to do by building a brick wall, as we start building momentum across the state, that problem's going to be in their court. We're not going to be obstructionist. Obviously we want to see government operate and function to the best of its ability. But we're certainly not going to step back and think for a second that we're not going to get a wish list out for Queenslanders. Because it's about time that the Queenslanders had a say. This Parliament, this beautiful place here that's been going since Queensland was created in 1859, it's completely disconnected from 4.4 million people. What we want to say, it's not about the major parties anymore. This is about Queensland and Australia. And we're going to go in there, guns blazing, to make sure that we, without fear or favour, can represent our areas and really get the common sense agenda that people are looking for.
We spoke about your former membership of the LNP. You obviously took a big risk becoming an independent, now part of the Australian Party. Do you have a plan B in case this doesn't all work out?
No, I think you've got to go in this with an all or nothing approach. There is no plan B for me is plan A. So the reality is, you look at things and think, oh, what should I do post-election? Well, the reality is we're going in it with everything we've got. With the limited resources and firepower that we've got. This is our golden opportunity to put something on the line to say, look, we are a point of difference. Yeah, the LNP, high in the polls, a lot of that's soft vote. I think what you'll find is, I don't see people jumping up and down saying the LNP is going to save Queensland. What I do see, though, is I would say, almost a terminal ALP now. So there's a massive anti-Bligh government sentiment. There's a very little pro-LNP sentiment, and there's a big vacuum there where people are starting to wake up to the fact that they've been sold a pup by the two parties, and they're sick and tired of just the petty politics. And we've seen a lot of, over the year we saw a lot of, the dirt files bring up, and that shouldn't come as a surprise, because when you don't have any point of differences in your policy, all you've got left is personality. So these sort of things will start to exacerbate, and I think people are starting to say, well, really, when you look at the Parliament, you've got Pepsi on one side and Coke on the other. It's just a branding exercise. They're after a glass of water. That's where the Australian Party comes into play.
Aidan Mclindon, thanks for your time today.
Thanks very much.